Our next guest is Mark Howitt of the World Public Union, and I'm going to let him talk about that. He also did two documentaries recently about the Aurora shooting and the Sandy Hook shooting. Mark, well, welcome to the show, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on to discuss these things.
Well, let's just go right in and tell our listeners what exactly the World Public Union is.
Well, the World Public Union is essentially exactly what the word says it is, world, which is global, public, which is non-government citizens, and union, which is a group of people fighting for human rights, civil rights, things like that.
Yeah, so it's pretty much just trying to get people to wake up to what's really going on and kind of have a...
Yeah, like it's not... it's just like a giant group of people. Like if anybody can join, it doesn't cost anything. It's just people that are really waking up to the truth of what's going on in the world when it comes to governments, corruption, war, military, famine, the secret societies, human testing, human experimentation, GMOs. There's all sorts of things that are wrong with the world, and the World Public Union is essentially a way to try to clean up the world, doing it publicly, essentially, like anybody from the public that wants to do so. And it's the website's still under development, but essentially what it'll do is give people training if they need help to figure out how to help in their community or how to be heard, how to get petitions out there, how to clean up the fluoride from their drinking water. There's all sorts of things that we're going to be tackling with the World Public Union, but the website's pretty new, so it's just it's still in development.
That's worldpublicunion.com, and you can find a link.
.org, actually.
.org?
Yeah.
Right. You can find a link to that on our website. So, Mark, I wanted to ask you, you did two documentaries on the recent shootings. Talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, obviously, you kind of think it's a conspiracy. To tell us about that, especially the Sandy Hook.
Yeah, like, I made the James Holmes conspiracy documentary shortly after that crime happened, because when I seen the news reports and I seen what was happening, I had a lot of questions, and it was really bothering me, like, to the point where I needed to, like, ask these questions somehow. And I made documentaries before, so I wanted to kind of tackle that case, and that kind of got me into the looking at that kind of aspect of shootings and stuff. And then the Sandy Hook shooting occurred, and it took me a while to actually make that documentary, but a lot of people were telling me, you should really look into that because it's kind of similar. Like, there's multiple suspects, and there's a lot of similar aspects to that case that's similar to Aurora. So I started taking a look into the Sandy Hook stuff, and sure enough, it seemed like there was a conspiracy again. It seems like the government had pre-planned knowledge, and there's a lot of questionable aspects with the Sandy Hook case, definitely. And in the documentary, I tried to tackle a lot of the aspects of the case that people were questioning. I wanted to kind of, like, there's a lot of questions that people were asking, and I know some of the things in the documentary have since been debunked and new information came out, and some of it is not accurate anymore because of the timing and stuff like that. But there is a lot of material that's in the documentary I made that's still questionable, and I even feel that some of it's evidence that could be used in court. So. Yeah,
well, I kind of agree with you, but I don't really believe that the whole thing was a conspiracy. I think that there was a shooting.
Yeah.
I don't believe in the whole crisis actor thing. But
yeah, me neither. The reason why is because there's so many people involved, so. And that's where a lot of people actually critic the film that I made, because they think that I claim that there was actors, when I clearly state in the film that I believe that there was actually people affected by this, and that it was a black ops of some sort.
Black ops. So, I mean, there's so many different things to tackle. I'm going to try to get into all of it. But when you're talking about black ops, one of the most glaring things I think that about this whole Sandy Hook was the other people that they supposedly arrested, the ones you can look this up on, I think it was on Alex Jones when I saw it, of the two people in the woods, and then there was the guy in the car that was in the front of the car. So what do you think about all the other people involved? I don't think it was just Holmes.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You mean Adam Lanza in regards to Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Aurora is the same situation though with James Holmes. There's multiple witnesses that say that there was another person in there, that someone had to have let him in the theater. We have yet to see video footage publicly that he entered the theater and that he actually went into the back door, because I'm not exactly 100% sure if there was a camera back there, but most theaters do have that, and they had cameras. If they had a security system that would warn people that there was a murder in the building, then they obviously had to have security cameras as well in there. So we haven't seen any of the footage, but according to the court reports that I've been reading online in the news reports with James Holmes, they did review video evidence of him inside of the theater. He's walking to the booths and then he goes in and sits down in the theater. So apparently they've reviewed it in court, and they've also reviewed video of him inside of gun stores purchasing or trying to purchase guns and stuff like that. So whether or not we will see that publicly, I don't know. But that's another reason why I started the World Public Union, because we need some transparency in government. And the reason why there's so many people saying there's all these conspiracies going on is because we're not being shown any real evidence to prove what the government is saying. And there's so many fault lines when it comes to the news reports and the government and authorities reporting on these events. When you really take a look at the evidence and the witnesses, it doesn't add up, you know?
Yeah, well, the Sandy Hook, you were talking about the cameras. In Sandy Hook, they still have yet to release the footage in the school for whatever reason, and I think they actually installed cameras there before that were like up, like HD and all that, and they still haven't released it for whatever reason. Kind of begs the question, what are they hiding?
Yeah, like I've heard somebody say that they didn't have cameras inside of the school in the hallways, but they did have one at the front door for sure. That's a given, because it was I think it was state law. They like all the schools now have that system implemented. The Sandy Hooks recently, got the security system installed to get up to par with the state code, and so they have video of whoever entered the building, and it seems like there was multiple people that entered the building, because there was jackets found on the ground beside the car, and there's parents that were at the school that ran away from the school after they heard the gunshots and noticed that the front glass was broken. They noticed that the car, the suspect vehicle, the Lanza vehicle, had all four doors open. So that would indicate that, somebody opened all the car doors, whatever they were doing, and that kind of indicates that there was multiple suspects. And now the police or whoever was on the scene destroyed that evidence by closing the doors on the car. So we've never seen any actual evidence proving that the car doors were open, just this parent's witness testimony, but it still is a witness testimony, so essentially it could be used in court.
What wasn't that car? It wasn't even Lanza's car, was it? It was registered to somebody else, right?
No, it's I've actually seen the reports that Nancy Lanza was paying for a Honda Civic vehicle. So, and I've also seen paperwork from Chris Rodia on the car payments that he's been making, and they're not for a black Honda Civic. So it's been proven that that wasn't Rodia's car. That at least from my research and what I've dug up, I totally think that was the Lanza vehicle. I think that it was actually stolen from the house and driven there just to set up there to make it look like it was Adam Lanza, because Adam Lanza's Social Security death index date states that he was dead on the 13th, December 13th, and the crime actually happened on the 14th. So if his death index reports that he was actually dead on the 13th, then he was killed the day before, and he didn't do that shooting inside of the school.
His body was maybe just brought there.
Yeah, by whoever was in the vehicle, and that's why all the the doors in the car were open, and that's why there was multiple jackets found. That's why there was multiple suspects running, and they were actually detained, and we haven't been told who they were because the government wants to cover that fact.
Yeah, well, the obvious question is, who do you think they were?
Well, the Newtown Bee, the local newspaper for Newtown, Connecticut, reported that authorities told them that it was an off-duty tactical officer from another district. But they never gave what district, they never gave his name, they never gave any information in regards to who this person was, and that was only one suspect. And then you have the person who lives in Connecticut, Roy Lowe, who gave a testimony to the news that he claims that there was a suspect sitting in the front of the vehicle, inside of the front of the police vehicle. And he looks right at the suspect and describes what he looks like while he's looking at the reporter. And the reporter, you know, he obviously was told not to film the suspect in the vehicle because we've never been shown footage of who it was in the front of the vehicle, or there's no pictures or anything that I've seen that are actually legitimate that show anything. So, you know, if he's seeing somebody sitting inside of the front of the police vehicle, then you would think that it was somebody that was law enforcement or somebody that was connected that maybe had an excuse and maybe they were arrested as a suspect but later released, you know. But the fact is, we haven't been told who it is, what unit they're from, why they were there, why they were running from police and detained as a suspect in the first place. And on the police recordings, you can hear multiple people get detained. So it's not just one person, there's multiple people.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're not going to put a criminal in the front of the car, so it had to be somebody that they trusted at least.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you believe all of this or not, I'll let you listeners decide. We're just giving you the facts and my guest's opinion here. But also, what do you think the whole point of this was? If it was a government staged event, what do you think? Really, was it for gun control? Or what?
Not only gun control, but I think it was for freedom of speech, targeting, just like 9/11, it was to implement more control over people. They're going to be passing new laws and all sorts of things now because of this, and that's the way they do it, you know what I mean? Whether it's a real attack or a false attack, false flag attack, they orchestrate these events so that they can make it easier to pass law. And it's a psychological attack on the human mind is what it is, because people aren't expecting this. You know, they see this on the news and they see all this stuff happening, and then they automatically get into a state of panic and fear. And when they're in this state of fear, they're more subjective to make changes or to create a solution for the problem that's ahead of them. And a lot of times they don't fully understand the problem. They take the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and then the laws are passed, and then our freedoms are slowly diminished. And they're attacking the Constitution, and they're attacking all sorts of things, you know. And I'm from Canada, you're from America, but essentially our countries are involved with the United Nations. So the United Nations is the one world government system. So the United States kind of adheres to the United Nations policy. And in fact, when they're passing laws in the United States, they have both a copy of the United Nations Charter and they have a copy of the Constitution. And if the United Nations Charter outbids the Constitution, then the decision is made in favor of the United Nations. So the Constitution is essentially insuperior compared to the United Nations Charter.
Yeah, I've heard that too, but I wanted to ask you first, I'm sure you followed the Chris Dorner story pretty closely. What do you think? Do you think that was a false flag too, or?
That's hard to say, but I genuinely feel that he was trying to make a statement. I've read his manifesto. It's actually available on the World Public Union website in the documents section. You can download it. I have a lot of declassified documents available up there for people to read if they're interested in this kind of thing, to learn about how governments cover up things and eventually the truth comes out. But the Dorner manifesto is available on there, and I've read it, and I don't know, it's like, it seems like he just kind of had a problem with the system in Los Angeles, and he had a problem fighting through the system and with other officers, and nobody was believing his story and stuff, so he took things to a different level, you know. And it's hard to say because there's a lot of things in that manifesto that are questionable, like his appreciation for George Bush. That's very questionable. Like, I don't know anybody that really appreciates what that man has done.
Yeah.
So for him to say that in his manifesto is kind of questionable, and there's a few other things too in there that are just kind of weird, you know, that just kind of don't make sense. Maybe it was prefabricated, but apparently that was sent to the media before he did the attacks, and the media withheld the information from the public. They didn't tell anybody. I'm sure intelligence agencies knew and local authorities knew, but the public didn't know about this until after he was dead. So.
Yeah, well, and then there was they supposedly found his ID in San Diego, and then found his ID again next to his body. I mean, unless you're under 21, there's really no point in having two IDs. That doesn't seem to really make sense.
Huh. Yeah, I haven't heard that actually.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
yeah,
was on InfoWars, I think, but go ahead.
oh yeah, yeah. There's a lot of things with the Dorner case that I still have to look up and check out. Um, lately, I've been just working with on the World Public Union website and trying to get things like that. And I'm working on a new documentary on some crazy stuff that I'm not really gonna say what it's about yet, but I hope to have that done pretty soon. I just want to build up the suspense and kind of not give it away, you know?
Yeah, I understand, but you were talking about George Bush, but he also was a supporter of Obama and Joe Biden and all that, and it kind of doesn't really make any sense because, you know, he's a big fan of them, and then he's going around shooting people. So I think that maybe, or it's been pointed out that possibly that they have this huge Obama supporter and
Yeah.
have him be the next shooter, because nobody would think that. I mean, who would they? Why would they have a Obama supporter? So it kind of throw people off like us from dissent.
Yeah.
And
It's like those people, those parents at Sandy Hook, how on the news they're sitting there with their daughter and even Anderson Cooper with the letter that he read saying that the kids wish that Obama would pass gun laws, making it only for military and army to have them. And then in Dorner's manifesto, he talks about disarming the people as well. You know, so that's another questionable aspect.
yeah, well, we're talking about the end game here, and I think one of the biggest factors in getting rid of guns is getting rid of like cops and former cops' right to bear arms, because you've heard of the Oath Keepers, I'm sure. They're one of the biggest supporters of the Second Amendment here. So if you're able to get rid of cops, especially retired cops, because I think they're like one of the largest sect of the population that owns guns, it'd be a lot easier just to disarm the average Joe when the cops are disarmed.
Yeah, like I think they're going to eventually move for a total banning of firearms, not just in America, but in other countries. This has been discussed, and if you really look at the United Nations and the moves they've made in the last, I don't know how many years, they've definitely been trying to do this over the world, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's America is actually, and Canada, and there's a few countries that are left that still have the freedom and the liberty and the right to bear arms. So
Well, America, I think one of the reasons why it's the last to go is it's the hardest to take. There's so many people that own guns. We have the Constitution ingrained in our culture. It's not like India or China or even Australia where they've already taken the guns. It's going to be a lot harder to do that here.
And I commend you Americans for that. And honestly, I think that if anything were to happen in retrospect to like a civil war or anything like that, I strongly hope that your fellow Northerners would support you guys in that, and I fully would commend and recommend for people to do that.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of respect for Canadians. I know they would do that, but
yeah, we have to stick up for each other's freedoms, and it's not just a sovereign issue, I think, or a country's issue. I think it's more than that. I think it's a
human issue.
Human issue, yeah, exactly.
So, well, we were talking about Sandy Hook, Aurora, and Chris Dorner. I think that there has to be another false flag to really push everything, to the forefront. There really needs to be something, because Sandy Hook has kind of gone out of the news and people have already forgotten about it. Do you think there's going to be another false flag on the way coming soon?
It's hard to say, really. Again, this would have to be my own speculation on the matter, but there's definitely something brewing. I could feel it in the air. It's in the energy. It's in the vibe of the planet, and I feel that if something does happen, it might not only involve the United States. I think other countries might be involved in what's coming, and we're going to see something very violent and disturbing in the near future. And that's the way these so-called elites operate. You know what I mean? they always have to orchestrate these events, and they're trying to take countries in the Middle East. They're still trying to get their foothold in there, and they already have in a lot of countries in that area, and it's just going to keep getting worse, I think. And just with the disarming issue, like China and stuff like that are really pushing for Obama to disarm the Americans. So there's a lot of turmoil going on right now between people against their governments, you know what I mean? And that's the main thing there, is there's a big, people are waking up to the government. That's what it is, all around the world. It's not only an American thing or a Canadian thing, it's all around the world. People are waking up and they don't want to take it anymore.
And I think that's why it hasn't happened yet, is because people are waking up to what's going on. If it wasn't for people realizing what is really going on, we couldn't have been under, you know, a dictatorship or whatever they want to do with us years ago. But thank God we're actually waking up and starting to fight back right now.
Yeah, now is the time. And you could even say that it's been prophesied a long time ago that this would happen. Or you could say that it's orchestrated. I'm a really big fan of William Cooper, and actually in one of his interviews, you know, he says right in the interview, like, either people are following the book of Revelation, like point for point, making sure that it's happening, or that those revelations and prophecies were really true, and what's coming is coming. And that's an interesting factor to point out, I think.
Well, do you think that, in your personal opinion, do you think that what's going on right now is end times, or is end times coming, or?
Not end times, no. But I believe that we're heading into a very bloody era of human civilization, and I believe that there's going to be a large-scale war fought between people and the control of the government. I'm not sure how large-scale this would be, but I believe that there's people orchestrating this too, and they want it to happen. And that's why I believe that it's going to happen, because these people control everything, and everything that they've ever wanted has happened already. And that's why they're in control right now. That's how they've done it for centuries. Kings and rulers, if you look at the American presidents, every single one of them has been related by blood except for one, Martin Van Buren. And that tells you something right there, that, you know, people can vote for whoever they want, but it doesn't matter, because whoever is picked is predetermined by their heritage and their bloodline and their hereditary traits. Where they come from, where they've been bred. That's why these people don't go to public schools. They go to private schools. The public schools are for the random folk, or the commoners as they call them. So there's a huge state of control of government over the people, and that's what's happening right now. Is people are starting to see this, and they're saying, you know, this is disgusting. This is a disgusting act of human behavior, and it's time to stop.
Exactly. Well, and that's why they don't eat our food with the GMOs, and that's why they don't drink our water with the fluoride in it. They have their own, you know, things set aside. They have their bunkers when this is going to go down, and
exactly. And the organic food is priced more, and all the garbage food, like you know, potato chips and junk food and sugars and you know, non-real foods. Chemical-based foods are the cheapest that you could buy. So the people that are really struggling to get by in life are the ones that are eating like crap, and they're getting cancer, and they're getting all these diseases, which, by the way, were all created by the government as well, in labs, testing on animals and all that stuff. Pretty much every disease that's modern, that's known to mankind, has been created in a laboratory from government testing and then released on the public, whether on purpose or accidental. So that's another issue that we have, that I'm trying to address at the World Public Union. Vaccinations, they're not needed. You know what I mean? They're just trying to put more soft metals into your blood. And another interesting thing too is is they're trying to control us in every way they can. Like cell phones, they all are built now with video cameras on them, and that's so that, like, they have buildings and centers where people are paid, and they go into these places and they sit on a computer all day and they watch people. That's all they do, is they watch people through their video cameras on their cell phones and on their laptops and things like that, and they can tune into anybody's computer. They have GPSs on everything now. You know what I mean? They couldn't implement the RFID chip. I remember a long time ago they were trying to put it under the skin and chip everyone, microchip, so that they could keep track of them, and you could just scan your wrist if you want to buy something at the store. But they couldn't do that because people wouldn't accept that. So now they've figured out other ways, ulterior ways to track everyone, and that's one of them is cell phones.
And then there's the smart meters too that they're really trying to push right now.
Exactly. And I had a military guy confirm that. I was in St. Paul, Minnesota, at a hotel on a tour I was with a band once, and there was a military guy just got off from overseas, and he was drunk getting out of his cabin. He had a smoke with me out in front of the building, and you know, he started talking about how his operation was going overseas, and then he started crying and telling me, like, you know, I just wish I could change the world, you know, because we started talking about some real things. And then I asked him about the cell phone thing, and he pulled out this cell phone I'd never seen before. It was some crazy new one. He said he just got it that day for being released from the army, and he confirmed with me there that yeah, they track you with your cell phone. So,
well,
a cell phone.
Well, bringing up the veterans and stuff, they're really pushing right now to disarm the veterans. It just came out today. I was on InfoWars, I think, but it's going to be, I think they got it from a mainstream article, that letters are being sent to veterans that have PTSD or other sort of disorders like that they are no longer allowed to own guns, and if they do own guns, somebody from the Veterans Administration will come and take it from them. And I think we're getting real close now to the trigger here, and I think this could be the trigger, because when you try to disarm a veteran who fought for his country,
yeah,
they're gonna fight back.
Mm-hmm. That's a slap in the face right there. Totally. These people go over there, and they don't even know why they're really going over there in the first place. They're just trying to serve their country and be patriotic and, you know, do the right thing and make an honest living however way they can, you know, and they get into the army and they enlist, and then they go overseas, and a lot of times they're not told the real reasons why they're there. Like they're there for other reasons than the public's even told. And then they get involved in these operations, and they're not allowed to talk when they come home, so they get depressed, and then they're using that to target these people to disarm them, it seems, and that's disrespectful and distasteful, in my opinion.
Yeah, in my opinion too. We're gonna take a break right now, and we'll be back with Mark Howitt after. And we're back on In the Dark Friday night with my second hour guest, Mark Howitt of the World Public Union. That's worldpublicunion.org. Mark, who are these people that are trying to enslave us?
It's essentially various groups from all over the place. There's the financial, like it seems like it's a giant mafia. It's the largest crime organization on the planet, it seems. That's my opinion on the matter. And it's hard to identify who's involved. You know, I've heard people say that it's the Freemasons, but it's not entirely the Freemasons. You know what I mean? The Freemasons have the potential to rise to become this and to attain the knowledge that's needed to do this kind of thing. But I don't believe it's all Masons. I think a lot of Masons are satisfied receiving their third degree Master Mason, and then they stay at that level. But there is certainly a lot of Masons that rise to higher levels and choose branches of Masonry that they join, other secret societies, where they learn about these certain aspects of control over the humankind. And it's really hard to say. Well, I've heard people say that it's the Jews or it's the Zionists. I've heard people say that it's the Satanists or it's the occultists. You know what I mean? It's hard to say, but it's really a control from all different areas. Like it's financially, they control us financially, they control us religiously, they control us dependently because we need water to survive. They're controlling the water right now, and they're trying to remove the water from the public and charge every drop of water they can. to make money from that, and these are the basic necessities we need for life. So it's essentially the people that are limiting us to our full potential as human beings that are guilty, that are the criminals here, because they're profiting billions, or trillions of dollars even off of other people trying to get by in life and surviving and going without. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, do you don't think it's like the Illuminati? Or there's actually an actual like group of people that have been running the actual world for years, like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers?
I'm sure that they're like, I'm almost certain that members of their families are part of it. Yeah, they always have been throughout the ages, and a lot of times this power is just passed on hereditarily through the ages, through their descendants, and that's why a lot of the royal families intermarry. They marry their family members because it keeps the bloodline pure and keeps the wealth in the family. And they've been doing this for years. It's even still, you know what I mean, the prince right now and Kate, they're related. So that's happening right now, even with the Windsor family. So,
well, you know, back in the when there was the Age of Enlightenment and all of these monarchies tumbled and they were replaced by republics and dictatorships. But when these royal families that have been ruling the country for hundreds, if not thousands of years, they weren't just going to give up their power that quickly. What I think probably happened is they went underground and kind of all kind of came together and maybe formed this idea back 100, 200 years ago.
Yeah, well, Adam Weishaupt and essentially the Rothschilds founded the Illuminati. Mayor Amschel Rothschild was essentially the one whose idea it was to do this, and he enlisted Adam Weishaupt, who studied at the Vatican and the Church and stuff like that. So he was pretty well educated in politics, political sciences, and stuff like that. So he enlisted the help of Weishaupt, and they created the Illuminati, which was actually called the Order of the Perfectionablists at first, but then they renamed it to the Order of the Illuminati. And they were banned outright in Bavaria and most of Europe, and they went underground, like you said. So that's where people have a hard time tracing them, because they infiltrated the lodges of Freemasonry, Illuminati, and because of this, some of the members of Freemasonry may still study the Illuminati, and even in the higher degrees, they may study the works of the Illuminati, and I'm sure that they do. I'm certain of this, actually, but the thing is, a lot of this is it's hard to say who it is and to blame a single person. It's more organizations and stuff like that they hide behind. A corporation is essentially the same rights as a human being almost, so they get away that ways. And I think if we broke down these organizations, these people would scurry out from behind the dresser, I guess you could say, and you'd be able to identify them,
Yeah, well, the Illuminati was, getting a lot of news in America, at least recently, because of the Super Bowl and Beyonce supposedly flashing an Illuminati hand sign, and then, like 15 minutes after she did that, the lights went out. What's your take on that?
Yeah, they've been doing weird symbolism in the, especially in the Olympics too in London. There's a lot of symbolism there. They use symbolism and cryptology to hide their meanings and messages, so that if you are enlightened to this wisdom, when you're watching it on TV, you can kind of see what's going on, and you're like watching a separate show almost, because you're aware of this information that's being transmitted to you, but other people aren't. And when you notice these things and you can kind of see what the symbols mean and stuff like that, it kind of makes a lot more sense when you're watching this kind of stuff, and you can. It's sickening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
See that they're doing this right in front of our faces, and most people will call you crazy, when you try to tell them about this. If they don't get it right away and they don't have the knowledge, it's hard to wake people up because they don't have any initial knowledge of this. They've been watching their Super Bowls, and they've been programmed by the media, and they every Friday and Saturday night they spend their night at the club, and they spend all their money at the bar, and then they come home and they feel like crap the next day, and the whole weekend that they're not working, they feel like crap because they're hungover, and they stay up all night partying and wasting their lives away. and that's what they want. You know what I mean? That's why the media, the commercials are programming us to do that, to spend our money on fast food, and then they're killing us with the fast food, and they just want us to diminish our potential so that nobody can rise up and actually become something. And they also know that if the human race did awaken fully, that there would be no chance that they would be able to continue with this control they have over us.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that really ticks me off and makes me really hate what these globalists are doing, other than the fact they just want to kill everybody. But they're diminishing the human race as a whole. Mm-hmm. For so long, we could be so great. I mean, I was just talking to our last guest. We were talking about UFOs, and I brought up the fact that it was 40 years ago that the last Apollo mission, back in 1972. I mean, it's been 40 years, and we haven't went to the moon since then. And I think if it wasn't for these globalists controlling us, there's no doubt in my mind we wouldn't have had a base on the moon. We wouldn't have been on Mars. But
yeah, I actually, to my belief, I think that they're already there, and they're just not telling us. You know what I mean? Like, I think that they're really all of the technology that they let us know about is really exactly that. They're letting us know about just that technology, and to most people, it's really like phenomenal, advanced technology. But they have way more advanced technology than what we know about. And there's so much evidence pointing towards this, like that they're not, like especially NASA and stuff like that they're not telling us the truth about things. They withhold things all the time. So I don't know, like I think that they even have a base on the moon right now, and like even a community there of people like mining or whatever. Like I wouldn't say they're mining full scale, but they definitely have that technology to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's why we don't really see pictures of the moon anymore.
Yeah. They don't want to talk about it, because...
And another reason why I don't think they let just anybody go there is it would be a lot harder for them to control, because, you have people here on Mars, you have them on the moon, then you have them on Earth. It would be a lot harder to control everybody.
Yeah, I was listening to your conversation with the last guest, and you were discussing a lot about extraterrestrials and stuff like that, and, that's definitely a possibility that there is beings from other planets and stuff like that, control it, and this is only one planet, and they dull us down to think that this is our limited space, like that we belong on the Earth and we can't really travel outside of it, to kind of confuse us and make us believe that it's impossible to go distances when it's really not. So
yeah, well,
there's got to be another planet like Earth, you know what I mean, that where you could breathe the air and you can walk around, and there's got to be at least, like, lots of them,
There's no doubt in my mind. If you it's simple math. If you just look at the numbers, we don't even know if there's life on Mars or on, a moon of Saturn, and there's thousands of other solar systems like ours just in this galaxy, and then there's, or billions, I should say, and then there's billions of galaxies. So if you just look at the number, it's almost impossible to say that we're the only one.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing, they don't want us to know about this. Like, there's so much, like, I get so worked up about this sometimes. I just wish I could tell a million people. I wish a million people were listening to some of the things I'd say, because I've never really heard other people say some of the things that I'm saying. But the human race is brought up from a very young age, like from birth even. Like when a baby is born and a child is born, their psychology is very different than ours. They're in a theta state of mind, and they're susceptible to taking on imagination. They're more vividly imaginative, and they, you know what I mean. But it's the world that they live in, that they're brought up in, that changes and shapes their opinions and their values, and creates the human beings they are when they get older. So these children, our children, are being born into this world and being raised in this world, thinking inside of the box, inside of the matrix, and they can never get out of this matrix, because their whole life they've been brought up inside of it, and they think that they're restricted to it. And the culprits of this are the media, the government, the world government agencies, world agencies, industry, corporations, banks. These are all the people that are implementing this giant matrix system on us, and making us believe that this is what we are. This is the potential of the human being, but that is false. That is false information. They're lying to you. We have so much potential as the human race, as human beings, and we just don't use it because of the system that's been bestowed upon us. And when children are born into this system, they don't think anything different. A child that's born in Africa has a very different life than an American child or a Canadian child or even a European child. They have very different lives, and the African child is brought up in a culture, in a community where it's very family orientated, but they have so much struggle because they don't have clean drinking water, they don't have food to survive. Often the children are taking care of each other and being the parents while the parents are dead from AIDS or diseases that run rampant over there. And if only they had the same chance that we do, you know what I mean? That would be the ideal human being right there, because they have no giant cities and corporations. They don't have to worry about money surviving. They grow their own crops. They have their own, their farm and their livestock, and they feed their family that way. But these corporations and the governments of these countries diminish these people to the point where they can't get up to that level.
Yeah, well, I think you're dead on that we need to kind of go back to a simpler time, I guess you could say, in the sense that we rely on our family and our neighbors and not the government to do everything for us. We need to...
Family first. That's the key right there, you know what I mean? That's when you have children and you have parents and you have grandparents and you have uncles, and that's what matters, you know, your family. And that's why we're here, is to have friends and family, and obviously to contribute to the community. You need to maintain and establish the community. You have to work, like jobs and stuff like that. You obviously need to contribute, otherwise the society would fail. But there's got to be a different way, you know, of living where we don't have this restriction. I think most people are responsible to make their own decisions, and they're sentient beings, and they choose their own path for the most part. But there's always the government there that's blocking them in a lot of ways. And when you grow up in this world, and that's the reality that you're stuck with, then you grow on to believing that there's nothing else, and you don't really realize your full potential, you know?
Well, yeah, I think it was David Icke who did a thing back in like the 1990s, and he said if you want a perfect way to indoctrinate and put your beliefs on the young generation, just look at the American education system. The parents give away their kids for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, you know, for more than half the year. It's the perfect system to brainwash kids. Yeah,
it starts out even sooner than that, because children are brought to daycare before they go to school, so that kind of trains their brain to wake up early in the morning, go to these places where they're away from their parents and under the care of somebody else who's going to educate their child and teach them the values of life. And the whole time they're being separated from their family more and more. And I mean, I have 2 kids, you know what I mean, and I try to devote as much of my life and time to them as I can, and it's really important that I'm there for them, you know what I mean, and that's number one for me. And I'm sure they have the same mentality that I do, that their kids they have to bring them up and teach them the right things, and that's very important for me, is to teach my kids the realities of life and being respectful and responsible and nice and caring and passionate, rather than fearful and hateful and regretful and those negative things that society instills on people.
Yeah, and well, I think that kind of brings up the question, how can we beat these overlords? How can we, you know, finally free ourselves of this?
Yeah, well, that's a question that I asked myself a couple years ago. I remember the day, actually, I said to myself, there's got to be a solution to this, you know? There has to be a way that these people can be overthrown, or something that, like, these people will wake up and make a difference and change the world that they live in. Like, there's got to be something that could do this, because for decades now, people have tried and they've protested, and it's gotten them nowhere. There's been no change as a result of these protests or anybody like that. Anybody that's actually sent letters to their Congress or their government to make change, or their opinions, because they don't listen to the people, you know. You could send them 1,000,000 letters and they still wouldn't read half of them, or they wouldn't care, because they already have their mindset before laws are even passed or changed, or executive orders are passed or anything like that, you know. So I was thinking, I'm like, there's got to be a way to, like, change this, and that's why when I came up with the idea of the World Public Union, it's like a union of the world. Like anybody, any country, it doesn't matter what city you live in, what country you live in. If you're awake and you are aware of these problems that we face as a human species, you need to, educate others around you about what's going on and kind of find each other. There's got to be a way to find like-minded individuals in your community that you can work with together to, address your local politicians, to sign petitions, to put up posters around your town, to make people aware of bills that they're passing, or to oppose bills that they're passing, even to oppose military advancements they're making, to oppose fluoride in your water, in your drinking water. Right now, Europe is pretty much dry of fluoride. I believe there's only 10% of the countries left, or even less than that actually, that have fluoride left in their water. Most of Europe is cleaned out of that, but it's only in, it seems, North America, like Canada, United States, and a couple other countries where fluoride is in the drinking water supply. And that's a big one right there. We need to get that out of our water, because that has an effect on your brain and your consciousness and just your thought, your behavior, your actions. It has a severe effect on that. And when you're drinking tap water all the time and it's got fluoride in it, there's medical tests that prove that it's harmful for you. It's actually considered toxic waste. It's actually considered as a toxic waste. So people are drinking toxic waste every day.
Yeah. Well, that's a known fact that fluoride is a toxic.
Yeah.
But when you put it in water, supposedly it's good for you. But
yeah, in my town, the World Public Union, we had meetings about how to do this and how we could change our community, because that's where I think it starts, is in your community. If you want to change, you have to change your own world around you, and that starts on a local level. It's not like you can change France or when you're living in Chicago or something. You got to start on a local level, grassroots, and you got to meet people. You got to meet up with the other activists in your town. And when there's a protest and it's time to protest, the World Public Union is a way that all unions protest at the same time. So if we have a big union in Chicago, we have a big one in Toronto, we have a big one in San Diego, let's just say, and something really drastic happens, it's a way for everybody to show the voice, you know what I mean? It could be the voice of the world if it builds up to that potential, but that's kind of one of the ways that I kind of thought of changing the world and trying to change it anyways. And this way here, it's a way that it's publicly ran, you know what I mean? It depends on the specific needs of the community. Some places have different issues than other cities, and that's a local issue. So it's really important that people, that people even consider doing something like this, because I would suggest, if you are interested and you want to make change for the world, get in touch with me at theworldpublicunion.org, or join the forum and just comment on there, join the community, and start a group in your community where you can teach people about this kind of stuff, show them videos, have monthly meetings and show documentaries, or have monthly meetings and discuss what's going on in your town. But it's important too to try to address the fluoride issue, because we tried doing that here in Sudbury, and we had a petition made and we passed it around and we had a lot of support for it. And then the mayor told us that they put fluoride in the water to harden the pipes and keep the pipes clean. And they said that it's not financially possible to remove the fluoride, but I believe that they're just dumping it into the water supply. Like they get big barrels of fluoride in, and then they mix it and they dilute it or whatever, and then it gets into the public water supply through the pipes. So, they had all these excuses on why they didn't want to remove fluoride, and that kind of made me think, like, wow, there's bigger powers here than just a local. So if we can't do it in my town in Sudbury, then if every town and every city was protesting at the same time and signing petitions and trying to get fluoride out of the water, then it would become a world issue, and I think they'd look at it way more seriously than they are now. When it's like a 90 or 80% of the world or the people that are protesting and saying no means no, they usually tend to listen a bit more than when nobody's actually doing anything or involved in their community or protesting. So that's why I started the World Public Union, is just kind of a way for people to get active, because that's what it's going to take. We can't just sit on our computers and watch YouTube videos and then say, yeah, I'm awake, because that's not what it's going to take. It's going to take meeting and physically doing something with your body, mind, and soul. You can't just sit on the computer and have an identity, a false identity, a nickname or whatever, and then chat and post and say you're awake. Like, You need to get involved locally, know who your local politicians are, know them by name, get in touch with them. When you see something happening on a local level, that's what's needed to change the world, you know. And unfortunately, nobody's being taught that in schools, even from a young age. They don't teach you about law or politics or taxes or money or anything like that. They teach you about, you know, most kids now are watching movies in their classrooms and they're not really learning too much, so.
Yeah, well, we need more people like you, and his website, again, is worldpublicunion.org. Mark, we definitely need to get you on the show sometime. Again,
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on.
No problem. Thanks for wanting to talk to me. I'm definitely up for talking with anybody about this because I think these are important issues that we need to discuss more openly as a people, you know?
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on the show again, and we'll try to keep in touch, all right?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks.
Yep. All right, and that was, again, Mark Howitt of the World Public Union. Disturbing to say the least. And our guest before was Darren Crapo, and his show was UFO Planet. I want to thank both of our guests for coming on tonight. Very interesting topics, and I encourage you, again, to come and back and listen to us next week and check out our website, which is inthedarkfridaynight.com, and follow us on Twitter at inthedark2126. I'm David Kirk. This is In the Dark, and I'll see you next Friday.